But I'm still trying to figure out where to start from.
Why?
Because the matter we are discussing is very complicated.
Okay.
And the Honorable Member of Parliament has even made it more complicated by vying into all kinds of areas, you know. But look, let's say that the important thing is that this committee of inquiry has provided empirical evidence pointing to the fact that this was an accident. And accidents occur in all kinds of situations. Indeed, they are accidents because we couldn't prevent them. You understand? As we sit here, I mean, the three of us, who knows what is going to happen when we leave the studio this morning? Clearly unpredictable. Can get a flat tire or best tire, anything can happen. Some reckless driver can run into you, anything can happen. I mean, so it's an accident. And the fact that the committee concluded that it's an accident also implies that there was no deliberate effort to sabotage, as was speculated much earlier. So this is an accident. Could we have done some things that could have minimized the chances of the accident occurring? Yes, according to the committee report. According to the committee report, more modern aircrafts would minimize the chances of such things happening.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that even the most modern of aircrafts get involved in accidents. Okay? Yeah. So that's not 100% proof that accidents would not occur in the future.
Or guarantee.
Or guarantee. It just minimizes the possibility of accidents, occurring. So far, from what I've heard of the committee report, I don't think that any of us has read the full report of the committee. We are only commenting on what has been made available to the media. And from what we have all read, the indications are that this was an accident. Now, for me, the thing which ought to have come out of this accident, the most important lesson and the most important action that this accident should have inspired ought to have been an intensification of the fight against Galamsey. That ought to have been it. And this is a country which has lost 8 of its citizens, including ministers who were dealing with the issue of Galamsey. You understand? And that should have provided a certain impetus for going beyond what we have done now in order to deal with this menace. Unfortunately, I don't see that this accident has sufficiently galvanized us to take extraordinary measures to deal with the extraordinary situation of Galamsey. And I feel a bit uncomfortable, about that situation, because this is a huge opportunity. I mean, look, any stringent measures which were taken after this accident to deal with Galamsey would at least have appeared to be justifiable in the eyes of the public. It seems to me that we are missing a most important opportunity to take extraordinary measures in order to deal with the menace of Galamsey. You understand? So that's one point. The other issue which has come up is the safety of our leaders, the conditions in which our leaders travel or pursue, the assignments that we have given them. And this is an old argument. It's not new. I recall when the Fokker 8 jet was being bought in the 1970s and the arguments that came up. I recall when the issue of the flying coffin, was also raised about the need to buy a new presidential jet and so on. It's not new. It's not a new debate. It's not a new issue. I recall recently when the Minister of Defense actually said in Parliament that the President was hiring expensive private jets because a certain level of comfort needed to be assured, for our President. And I recall the arguments put forth by Honorable Samuel Okudjato Ablakwa, now Foreign Minister, and so on. I recall all of this clearly. Now, the point I want to make is that no country in the world has unlimited resources. No country in the world has unlimited resources. And that is why when it comes to the comfort of officials and so on, we have to constantly be weighing cost. We have to be doing cost-benefit analysis. Cost-benefit analysis. Okay. And our leaders ought to understand that their prime responsibility is not to assure their own comfort. Their prime responsibility is not an assurance, to ensure a certain assurance of their own comfort, but generally the well-being of all the people of the country. And if they understand that, these debates sometimes will become needless. We are talking about the safety and comfort of our leaders. They fly jets, which may be rusty, the wings may be rusty, and so on. And therefore, it has become important for some people to argue for the purchase of better presidential jets and so on. Sometimes I don't blame them. Many of them have not taken the trotro from Labadi to Circle before. They don't know what the conditions are. Talking about rusty vehicles, take the trotro. They're talking about vehicles with defective tires. Take the trotro. You understand? They're talking about road conditions. Travel by road from Accra to Kumasi and see the risk that millions of our citizens have to take. You understand? In order to travel between Accra and Kumasi. Try driving to Winneba and see the dangers that millions of our citizens face. Now, there's a choice before us. And this choice ought to be seen within the context of the limited resources available to us as a country. Should we spend resources improving the Accra-Kumasi road, or we should spend resources buying a luxurious presidential jet? That's a decision we have to make as a people. Should we come up with regulations and enforcement of regulations which would ensure that the quality of trotro transport is substantially improved for the millions of people who depend on it? Choices to be made. So at every stage, you have to make choices. And there are those who argue that in the making of these choices, the comforts of our leaders are most important. I disagree. You understand? In making these choices, it is not the comfort of our leaders which are most important. Why? Look at the conditions in Ghana today. And here, I'm referring to an authentic police intelligence report. You have an authentic police intelligence report which says that all the way from the northernmost border of this country up to Yeji and below, terrorist organizations have established sleeping cells in this vast area of the country. Now, if this danger explodes, can you imagine the number of people who will die? The number of people who will be rendered homeless and so on. Should we spend resources on this, on removing this terrorist threat, which is staring us in the face, or we should spend resources acquiring a comfortable, luxurious jet for the number one citizen of our country. Choices to be made. You understand? We have choices to be made. And whatever choice we make actually betrays our political and social orientation. Clearly betrays our political and social orientation.
How so?
Oh, it shows where you stand. It shows where you stand within the context of a class society.
Right.
So whatever choices we make betrays our political and social orientation. You understand? So, as far as I'm concerned, it is important to provide some protection for our leaders. It is important to provide some level of comfort for our leaders. But it is equally important to provide protection, comfort, and so on for the people of Ghana that the leaders are supposed to lead. Okay? So constantly we are engaged in a balancing exercise. Many times, politicians use these opportunities to claim vindication. Okay? So today, if you listen to many of our friends who are members of the New Patriotic Party or leaders of the New Patriotic Party, say, we've been vindicated. When our president was flying private jets and so on, there was so much noise made. The fact is that the aircraft that existed then was not airworthy. The fact is that we are concerned about the comfort and safety of the president. In any case, if the aircraft was not airworthy, if it was in a state of dilapidation that we are talking about, whose fault? Because aircrafts by nature can last for decades, depending on maintenance. So if a government refuses to maintain an aircraft and its condition deteriorates to the level that the Gulf Stream is supposed to have deteriorated, should the public purse be used to correct that error of governance, of government? Should the public purse be used? That's the question that all of us have to answer. You understand? Because if the Gulf Stream is in service throughout the world, many businessmen and so on continue to use the Gulf Stream aircraft. Why is it that the Ghana one cannot be used? Because we didn't maintain it properly. And if there's a government who does not maintain the aircraft properly, can it then turn around and use that as an excuse for buying a new jet? No matter what jet you buy, if you don't regularly maintain it, it will deteriorate to this level. You can buy the most expensive aircraft in the universe. If you don't maintain it, it will deteriorate. And if it deteriorates, it then doesn't become an excuse for buying a more luxurious one or inventing a more luxurious one. So this is the context within which I think we should have this conversation. I'm happy that in the final analysis, there is some empirical basis for making decisions about the aircrafts available to the Ghana Air Force, the aircraft available for official business, and so on. There is some empirical basis for making decisions. But in making those decisions, we ought to arrive at a certain balance, which is not weighted more in favor of official comfort than public good. That's all.